That is a terrible way to start. I'm going to try to edit that out. Hey fellas, today we're looking at angles. And look at this fancy new technology I've brought into our classroom. It's moments like this I'm glad that I cut my fingernails last night. Anyway, let's go through a couple of things before we get started. First thing we're going to be doing is using this handy tool to measure our angles. This, of course, is called a protractor. If you're using the ones at school, sometimes the lines are a little bit faded. So as we're reading through, just keep it in the back of the mind. Some protractors are slightly different. Some of them have holes in them, but the maths behind it stays exactly the same. I want to dial it back a little bit to three things that you've probably already heard of. And that's the three types of angles that we're going to be looking at. The first one is called an acute angle. The second one is called an obtuse angle. And then we've got right angles. Let's go through the three just as a little bit of a reminder, shall we? Acute angles are angles that look like this. They're little. They're nice and cute. They're always really skinny. And the definition behind them is that if we look at a protractor, we can see that a 90-degree angle is one that goes straight up and straight across. That's our right angle. Acute angles are always less than 90 degrees. So if you've got an angle that's anywhere from 1 degree all the way up to 89 degrees, it's an acute angle. Obtuse angles, on the other hand, like looking at our protractor, they're ones that are greater than 90 degrees. So they're ones that look like this. They're really, really, really big and fat angles. That's how I like to think of them. They are always greater than 90 degrees. And they go between 91 degrees all the way up and to 180 degrees. Once it gets past 180 degrees, it's called something else, which we'll look at in a little bit. Then there's also right angles. Right angles look like this. They go straight up, they go straight across, and they're marked by a nice little square down here. Right angles are always 90 degrees exactly. If it's not 90 degrees, it's not a right angle. I hope those three make sense, because right now we're going to be looking at something else. We're going to pick an angle here, and we're going to be using our protractor to measure it. So looking at this angle here, we know straight away that it's an obtuse angle. So we know that the answer is going to be greater than 90 degrees. Doing that helps us check our answer later on. So let's look at how we actually use the protractor. This little tool here, I like to think of it, the starting point, you've got to use it as if it's a ruler. So you've got to first of all line up, see this mark here where the 3 points meet. We've got the semicircle here, and then we've got 3 lines that meet. That's the bit where you start measuring from your angle from. So that's got to be perfectly in line with the exact corner of your angle. Once you line it up, you're ready to go. Now, I can't start measuring my angle yet because you can see this line here, that's also very important, is not in line with my angle. So I've got to slightly tilt it, remembering to keep that dot right in the center until the bottom line is completely level with my angle line. That's where I like to think of it as a ruler. You've got to perfectly match it up. When you've got it perfectly matched up, you're ready to start measuring. Now, the protractor is a little bit complicated because you can see there are 2 sets of numbers here. There's a set of numbers that go around the inside of the protractor. It goes 0, 10, 20, 30, all the way up to 90. But over here, there's one that says 180, 170. We always start measuring angles from the 0. So I'm on the line here. I need to start at 0 degrees, and I know that I'm going to be measuring this angle using my inside markers. So I'm going to go. Follow it all the way around to where the line meets, and then I always like putting a bit of a dot here so you can see, and follow it down. Remember, we started the inside numbers, so we go past 90 degrees, and it's roughly on 120 degrees. It's maybe off by 1 degree, but I feel like we can pretty safely round that too. That angle is 120 degrees. When you get to an angle like this one, you'll see this one is obviously an acute angle because it's shorter or less than 90 degrees. So again, we're going to do the same things. We get it perfectly lined up. Sometimes your protractor flips over. If it's like that and the numbers are backwards, you can't really use it accurately, so you need to tilt it around. Even if your page is tilted, let's say I'm trying to measure this angle, you can't really measure it like this, then you're going to have to rotate your protractor as well. Now, I don't know about you, but I'm finding that pretty hard to read upside down. So it's always better to turn your page, get your angle lined up, and make sure you're looking at it head on. Again, I'm making sure the dot lines up in the corner. I'm making sure this line across the bottom is perfectly in sync with my angle that I'm measuring. And I start from 0 and I measure my angle, 10 degrees. it gets to roughly 20 degrees. That angle is 20 degrees. This little sign here is the degree sign. It's important. If you don't put it, you're technically wrong. Let's do one more. This one's a little bit harder down here. So again, we start measuring the angle like this. We line up that little crosshair, that little mark. We make sure the 0 is perfectly in line on our line. And we start measuring from 0, so we're following the inside numbers all the way around until that's on about 161 degrees. So I can be specific and say 161 degrees, or if you round to the nearest 5 or 10 degrees, that'll be fine. If I measured and it was 169 degrees, and I rounded down to 160, then I'm probably getting a little bit far off what it should be. I just want to show you as well a trick that you can use if your angle's really small. So let's say I'm asked to find this angle. That's pretty small as it appears on a bit of paper. And you can see when you put your protractor on it, the lines don't go very far. So you can use a ruler or just the other side of your protractor, and you can actually extend the angle arms, and this doesn't change the angle at all if you do a nice neat job. So you just take it and rule it, extend it right out, makes it easy to measure. And this one's backwards than the other ones I looked at. So again, I'm going to start by making sure my protractor's up the right way. Put that little crosshairs right where it should be. I'm lining up my bottom line in line with my angle. And I'm starting measuring at 0. So this time I'm using my outside numbers. And I'm starting at 0, get to 10, 20, 30, and I'm going all the way up to roughly 70 degrees. That angle there that I've just hand drawn is around about 70 degrees. Make sure you practice with your protractor at home. Go over your stepping stones book. Just do exactly what I just did. Draw your own angles. Practice going through and measuring them. It'll make life a lot easier if you've practiced before your test.